Welcome back to Articulating with David Barnett. As always, I am Sharon Loker, your co-host, and welcome to our 7th podcast. I can't believe it's been number 7 already. And of course, with me, as always, is the one and only David Barnett.
Thank you for the great introduction. Hopefully the podcast will live up to your exclamations.
Well, today, David and I will be discussing the artist Marc Chagall.
One of my favorite artists.
Yes, a favorite of mine too. Part of the reason that we decided to get into Chagall and specifically some of the works that we have in the gallery here is the Milwaukee Jewish Museum will be exhibiting Chagall's Dead Souls, a satirical account of imperialist Russia. And that will be opening to the public on June 7th and running through September 8th. And of course, feel free to come see us at the gallery so you can check out some of our beautiful Chagall lithographs that we have in the collection. So to get started, I guess, David, if you would just kind of share with our listeners and viewers some of the Chagall pieces that the gallery has here.
Oh, yes. So Marc Chagall has always, as I said before, always been one of my favorite artists. And so as an artist myself, he's been very influential in my work. And I'm, from Odessa. My mother was born there in 1913. And Chagall was Russian as well. And he came from the small town of Vitebsk. And so his early pieces show the influence of his small town. So we'll start with a piece that is very rare. Chagall every year would do an original color lithograph as a New Year's card for his friends. And it was original color lithograph. And so why are they so rare? Because the editions were small. This one was an edition from 1974, edition of 200 only, because he would send these to his friends and they never thought that Chagall would be so generous to send him an original color lithograph. Most of them ended up in the wastebasket. This is classic Chagall. In this case, it's a portrait of his wife and with the village that he came from, Vitebsk, down below in the lower left. And then with a classic chicken, one of Chagall's favorite images. He always did animals. So
this is my first time actually seeing this piece. I knew that we had some of these, but this is the first time I'm actually witnessing it up close and personal.
You get the sort of the universe in miniature. You get the flow, the organic flow and movement almost in a circular fashion, like the cosmos. The next piece that we'd like to discuss is a double portrait of Chagall. It's called Chagall and his double. And so here you have Marc Chagall seated in a chair in front of his easel, and he's painting a still life. To Chagall's right is the Eiffel Tower. And then you have the violinist here, a dancer, and the angel, and a flying fish, southern France in the background there, St. Paul de Vence, where he lived, and then he and his wife, the lovers, on top of the painting.
Like you said, it has all these wonderful elements that you do associate with Chagall specifically. I think what I love about it most is the flying fish. It kind of pulls in some surrealism because Chagall really was doing a bit of surrealism before surrealism was even a thing, so to speak.
Yeah. Chagall really, you really couldn't put him into a particular style of art, really, because he was so original. He was his own person, very playful and in many ways kind of childlike.
You see a lot of childlike imagery in his work. And going into one of the next pieces I was interested in talking about is Black Moon. And as you can see in this one, we do have this kind of surrealist imagery once again, combined in this very childlike fashion. What I love is, again, you have the man and the woman, the little home, and then you have the moon itself, which is smiling, and it looks right out at the viewer. And that is one of my favorite things about this piece in general, as well as the hands kind of coming down from the heavens.
With a bouquet.
Yes, with the bouquet. These kind of almost childlike looking scribbled mountaintops, just the different flowers and kind of garlands that are running throughout the upper part of the image. As you mentioned before, that, Chagall was one of those artists that you really couldn't pin down into any category. I think if you even look him up, trying to figure out, what movement did he belong to, you'll find so many different movements.
It was the Chagall movement.
Yeah, exactly. He really was his own movement. What I find very interesting is, he does have this playful surrealism, as we've been talking about, as well as sometimes he's got this kind of fauvist approach to his work. Other times, completely different subject matter dealing with biblical themes. He's considered a modern artist. Kind of runs the gamut when it comes to different styles. This piece is Paradise. And as you can see, it's Adam here and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And again, we have this surrealist depiction of the two figures. What strikes me about this piece is the way they seem to be united into one figure. There's no, the only arm you see is Eve's coming up to reach for the apple from the tree. You don't see arms or any other arms or legs coming off either figure, and in fact, they're kind of conjoined and morphed into one. That has always kind of raised a lot of questions for me. I wonder, was that something that was consciously done? Because, of course, the biblical story is that Eve was created out of Adam's rib. So is this supposed to show that? Or is it just that they're so entwined with one another that we're just not seeing Adam's arms and both of their legs? That's always kind of what comes to mind when I first see this. And then I love this little angel up at the top here that is just rendered, in outline. There's no real intricate detail as compared to, the beautiful tree or the figures themselves. It's kind of this little afterthought just placed up at the top.
And then the moon.
Yeah, so then you get, of course, the little sliver of the moon as well. But again, I find it interesting because, most of Chagall's work does have this very dreamlike, otherworldly quality to it. And this, I think, is a perfect example of that, where you're really seeing the spiritual nature of his work combined with a little bit of the physical realm with, the actual two first humans that ever existed, Adam and Eve.
Chagall work is so unique and original and stands out among artists that do color lithographs. And the reason partly is because Chagall did not go to the art supply store and buy his pigments and inks off the shelf. He would have his pigments ground from raw pigments, Lapis Lazuli, for example. And so Chagall was able to get a lot of nuances that no other artist could get because of all the time that was spent grinding raw minerals just for his own specifications.
Yeah, you think about, some of the work that goes into just the preparation of creating these pieces as compared to what is available to us today. And it's really quite astounding to me that artists such as Chagall and, of course, artists hundreds of years before him, were willing and so driven to create something that they were willing and able to go to this incredible extent to find their mediums and begin working with them. You mentioned the Lapis Lazuli, using that. Of course, for those of you unfamiliar, Lapis Lazuli creates a beautiful blue. And that is how I always think of Chagall, as just the beautiful blue hues that you see in a lot of his paintings and his lithographs and so on.
And
Yes.
Of course,
Yeah, this is perfect.
here again, you have a fantastic composition with Chagall and his wife and the bouquet of flowers and the violin here and the violinist and the chicken up here.
Yeah, and you even get that little crescent green moon that we just saw in Paradise as well.
This piece is special because stylistically it's quite different than all the other Chagalls. And what is different about it? Well, if you look at the shapes, they're geometric shapes rather than the free-form organic shapes that are typically associated with Chagall's work. And I did not understand what was happening in this piece until visiting the Chagall Biblical Message Museum in East France that Chagall built and paid for with his own funds. One of my visits there had a special exhibition of Chagall's drawings and watercolors that were used as preparatory works for his stained glass windows. That's when I discovered, because I had the lithograph before I saw the show at the Chagall Museum, and so that was very exciting for me to see
that connection. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And this particular piece, it's from a publication in Paris, Derrière le Miroir, which means, translated from French, behind the mirror. And then it's signed here in the stone by Chagall. One of my favorites.
Yeah, I love this piece as well. Because again, of course, it has that wonderful blue that we associate with Chagall, the Lapis Lazuli, and even that shade of blue ties back to his stained glass works. For anyone who's ever been to the Chicago Art Institute, they have the wonderful Chagall stained glass windows there. Yeah. And I remember seeing those as a kid. That was actually one of the first pieces of Chagall's that I ever saw. Mm-hmm. And I just remember walking up and just being in awe, just the beauty of it and that deep, that lapis derivative that gives such that beautiful hue and richness.
Our show will overlap with the Chagall show at the Jewish Museum in Milwaukee, which is just 4 blocks north of the gallery. And for anybody who is a member of the Jewish Museum in Milwaukee that comes in and purchases a Chagall from us, the David Barnett Gallery will donate 10% of the sale price to the Jewish Museum. And if somebody is not a member there and they take out purchase a membership there, then we'll donate 15% of the sale price if they purchase a Chagall from the gallery. So thanks for listening, and we look forward to seeing you soon, as well as at the Jewish Museum.
Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you next time.